Быстрее, братан, шагом. Быстрее, бежать меньше.
After the war broke out in Ukraine, the heaviest casualties were borne by Ukrainian and Russian troops, 2 weeks after the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Loss rates among Russian troops are at their highest since the height of the March battle for Bakhmut in the Donetsk region, with Ukraine claiming to have killed or wounded 4,600 soldiers. Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said Ukraine must prepare itself for a tough duel, but the biggest blow is yet to come. Separately, he said that Russia had concentrated a large number of units in the east, including airborne assault troops, but that Ukrainian troops were preventing their advance. He described the situation in the east of the country as difficult. Ukraine has recaptured the village of Piaty-Katki, a settlement in a heavily fortified section of the front line near the most direct route to the country's Sea of Azov coast, Maliar confirmed. This brings the number of settlements liberated in the last 2 weeks to 8, with 113 square km of territory said to have been captured from the occupying forces. Jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has urged his supporters to start a broad campaign against Moscow's actions in Ukraine as he stands trial on new charges of extremism that could keep him behind bars for decades. In statements posted on social media by his allies, Navalny stated that the decision to close his trial was a sign of fear on the part of Vladimir Putin, Russia's president. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said he had asked the Chinese government to be wary of private companies that might provide Russia with technology that could be used against Ukraine, although he said he had seen no evidence that Beijing was providing lethal aid to Moscow. With respect to lethal aid to Russia for use in Ukraine, we and other countries have received assurances from China that it does not and will not provide lethal aid to Russia for use in Ukraine, Blinken said in Beijing. The British government announced plans to tighten its sanctions policy against Russia, including imposing a law to freeze assets until Moscow agrees to pay compensation to Ukraine. The new measures will require any individual who has been designated under sanctions to disclose assets held in the UK. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky discussed his country's need for long-range weapons and pushed for tougher sanctions against Russia in a phone call with Rishi Sunak. The British Prime Minister said Britain firmly stood by Ukraine and that small steps forward will lead to success. NATO leaders will not issue a formal invitation for Ukraine to join the alliance at a summit in Vilnius in mid-July, Jens Stoltenberg, NATO Secretary General, said, although he added leaders would discuss how to move Ukraine closer to NATO. He also warned against accepting a frozen conflict in Ukraine in exchange for an end to the war and accepting the deal defined by Russia.
Просто